Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. Thank you so much for tuning in, sharing in this now moment with myself and with one another. If you haven't seen these videos, welcome, and welcome back if you have. My intention is unity and oneness and the highest levels of love light. How are we feeling? These energies this week have been wild for some of us. And this is kind of where I want to start because I've found that most people are really interested right now in what's going on with these energies. And I tend to do just a lot of channeling, and my channel tends to be sometimes wordy and technical, and it deals with the multidimensionality of language. However, the reason I started this channel in the first place was because I was going through some things, and I was called to share that with other people who might be going through these things as well. And so I want to get back to the Keep It Simple Star Seeds, which is about what we're going through, keeping it simple. How can we simplify our lives in the middle of all of this chaos? Now, I'll just say that what happened this week is we've got the full moon, I think today. We had a solar flare activity all week. We had a heightened solar flare incoming wave of energy probably yesterday approximately. And the first thing I want to start off by saying is that if you're feeling tired, if you're feeling unable to stay in your body and grounded, if you're feeling just all over the place or you can't keep your eyes open, these are things that many of us are going through. It's not just you. You're not in this alone. We're all in this soup together. Some of us react more to certain spices than others, and other people are immune to those spices. And I'm using this as an analogy about the soup that we live in. I've done a lot of videos on solar flare. I've done a lot of videos on ascension symptoms. And quite frankly, I'm probably going to continue doing more videos on this because it really is, as I've said before, a hot topic. No pun intended. Pun intended for this. Haha. Let's just kind of start off by, if you guys have watched my videos for a while, you can tell sometimes by how I share my messages what energies I'm experiencing. Sometimes my messages are high vibe and goofy and silly, and sometimes they're mellow and slow and soft. So I just kind of roll with the energies for the most part and allow that to pull or push me, draw me into the proper right direction or frequency that would most balance myself energetically. I'm not always able to stay in that balance. Sometimes I feel as if I'm in resistance. I'm fighting the currents. And sometimes we have to. Sometimes we feel like we're exhausted, but we don't have time to take a nap because we have kids and we're a caregiver for family members, or we have a very high intensity job that requires us to be on point, even if we want to lay down and just go to sleep. It's kind of a different topic. I will say, let me just back up for a moment, that no matter where we're at, part of this journey is about us learning how to navigate around this and through it. So when I say it, we are going through this evolution, and we are many people in the light worker community call it ascension. I feel a little bit both about it. As we ascend or move up in dimensions or increase our vibration, right? Things are going to shift, things are going to change, mentally, emotionally, physically, so on. But this is evolution too. We're evolving, we're growing. And what do we think happens with evolution? Well, if we are evolving as a human collective, then it's natural that we would be moving up and expanding out, which is, from my perspective, is ascension. So this is just something to keep in mind. I think oftentimes as light workers and star seeds, we can get wrapped up in the ascension label, if we want to call it that, the identification with anything, being an empath, I'm an empath, so these energies are going to affect me more than it will other people. We're all empaths from my perspective. And once we first learn about the whole idea of empath and we identify, and it helps us make sense as to why we've experienced some of the things, that's only one stage of the journey. We are being invited to recognize there's many stages to the journey, and being an empath is only part of that. What does that mean? Well, it means that in some cases, we just might be a bit more sensitive to the energies than others. But that doesn't make someone else not an empath. There is a certain hierarchy sometimes that we can fall into, or better spoken, a certain identification that can actually be sneaky. It can sneak up on us and make us feel as if we are more susceptible to these frequencies. Therefore, we can fall into this place of a little bit of Eeyore, like, I'm an empath, so I'm just going to feel all these energies more than everybody else. It's okay that you're not feeling it. I'm an empath. You guys, I've done it. I've been there. I recognize it. And I'm just really called to share this with everyone because I'm kind of seeing that coming up. There's nothing wrong with feeling like that, but it is a stage. I went through that stage, and eventually I realized that when we are going through these expansive moments, some of us are going to be more sensitive than others for many reasons. It could be because we chose to experience these experiences as a hypersensitive person, because that changes our experience. It makes it different than someone else who isn't experiencing them that way. Does that make sense? That's just one little topic I wanted to address. And so kind of recognizing and acknowledging, am I over identifying with this particular ID as an empath? And this is important because once you recognize that you are an empath, or better spoken, you've activated and become aware of, awakened to your empathic nature, we are being called to nurture that and utilize it to go into the other layers that are part of this journey, which means learning how to work with these energies so that we're not stuck in an identification of victimhood of being an empath. And that's another layer, meaning if we feel like we're being beat up all the time by these energies because we're an empath, that's the sneaky identification where we really are being called to acknowledge that. Also, not to enable, like empath enableization, right? We're enabling ourselves for always feeling bad because we're an empath. And I want to just really hone in right now on that, because it is the thing. I was sick, I don't know, for 2 years approximately, as I was going through a lot of this stuff. And I really identified when I was in high school, I almost didn't graduate high school. I'm just going to be very candid with everyone, because I had to go on homeschool because I was so sick. I had difficulty being in school. Looking back on it, part of the reason I was so sick was because I was an empath. And I identified with that strongly. I didn't know that I was an empath, okay? And I say I was an empath. Again, we all have the potential, from my perspective, of being an empath. So I would tell people, oh, I have this disorder. I have stomach issues. That's why I can't this. I have asthma. That's why I can't this. Oh, and while that might be true, maybe we have asthma, so we're not able to be involved in certain activities that enhance that asthma. But there's a fine line, and this was from my story personally, of recognizing that and then using it as a crutch, or over identifying with that symptom or disorder, if we want to call it that, and using that to using it as an identification to enable us to be unable to do something. Does that make sense? And by the way, this isn't directed to anyone in particular watching this video. I'm just sharing what my journey has been like. And I recognize the same thing in others. So we're being invited to ask ourselves, am I over identifying with any particular identification, including being a light worker, including being an empath, including being a healer? That isn't the only thing we are. We are so much more than just that. So from my perspective, it's about incorporating this into our lives so that we can feel more complete, and so that we're able to utilize those gifts to enhance our life versus thinking that it's taking away from our life. Also, back to the hierarchy thing, sometimes it's the opposite end of the spectrum. We feel different than everyone. We feel more unique than others, or we feel as if this has been something. So from that perspective is one sneaky version. And the other sneaky version is saying, I'm cursed with this. I'm an empath. I have this, I'm just overly sensitive and I can't handle it. Well, that might be true for you right now, temporarily. It doesn't mean that that is a permanent situation. I've worked with hundreds of empaths and people who have really suffered in this journey because of fill in the blanks. So many reasons, again, myself included. I've struggled my whole life with it. And for the first time since I started to embrace it and not see myself as only that, and to start to figure out what I needed to do in order to balance out my empathic nature, feelings, thoughts, abilities, that's when the intuition kicked in stronger. That's when I was able to utilize my energy work and recognize when I was taking on other energy that didn't necessarily belong to me, that I didn't need to hold on to, so on and so forth. And you guys, this is part of our journey. So I really just want to say, give yourself a hug. If you're going through this right now, many people are going through it as well. It doesn't have to be permanent. And sometimes it is about us, as I always say, acknowledging it and recognizing it. Now, if you're the person who says, well, I'm not using it as a crutch and I don't feel better than anyone else, I don't feel more unique or more special, I'm just frustrated because I am sick all the time. These incoming storms activate me. These solar flares knock me out for days. That is something that is a thing for some people. I don't know that it's going to be permanent. From my perspective, going through this for years, and I still go through it, it becomes more manageable for most people. Now I'm going to share. So I am going to do a series of videos on ascension symptoms and empath stuff. But just for the purpose of today, because I'm seeing this as being a necessary conversation with some people, is managing that. Part of it is about letting go of control, yet being in control. And that's always such a weird, right, dichotomy. Like, how do I let go of control yet be in control at the same time? So some physical symptoms that happen because of what's going on with the sun, we can't control. We might get really exhausted. That doesn't mean we can control and fight it and tell our body you're not tired. To some extent, that is possible, mind over matter. But for how long? And how often? And is that healthy to constantly be in resistance to that? Sometimes we just have to give in. Other times we're being invited to recognize, are we using this as a pattern? Oh, here it comes. I'm not going to be able to do this for a week. Maybe that's true. Or maybe that has shifted and changed and we just aren't recognizing it. But we've been in a habit pattern of following a particular habit pattern, which is, there's a solar flare, I'm going to be zonked. I'm an empath, therefore when I go to the grocery store, I'm going to be attacked by everybody else's energies. I just can't. These are things that we're telling ourselves. These are things that we're telling our bodies, our body, our emotional body, our physical body, our mental body, our causal body. So these are programs that I'm really being invited to recognize and acknowledge within myself, because you might be surprised. One day you might go to the grocery store after years of not being able to be in an environment with other people, and you might be fine. But sometimes we set ourselves up for that. And I bring up Eeyore because of that type of energy. And again, many of us have been there. So from my perspective, I did go through a stage where I would go to certain places, I won't name names, of grocery stores that I love, and I would leave being completely wiped out. But my energy centers were open. I was really doing a lot of energy work. I wasn't grounding. I was going through some deep transitions in my physical body, mental body, emotional body. And what happened was it left me vulnerable to energies that I wasn't used to being in control of, if that makes sense. So there is that fine line. And I think that could be a separate video, control versus not control. So keeping it simple, from my perspective, we have the ability to control how we respond to a situation. So I might recognize that when I go to the grocery store, it just seems to be that I'm really tired when I leave. I could choose to say, well, I'm an empath, so therefore when I go to the grocery store, energy vampires are sucking the energy out of me. That is a choice that I am making to buy into or identify with a belief about who I am and how energies are affecting me. Depending on how often I tell myself that story will determine how much energy and frequency I build around that particular identification. So that's just something for me to recognize. I have control over the story that I'm telling myself, which has an impact on me being able to control how I feel in a grocery store. Also, if I know that this is a common theme, I can do exercises in order to prepare myself for that interaction with those energies, rather than just giving my power away to those energies. And that's another layer. That's another step. How do I do that? That would be a whole other video. Some simple ways are visualization, techniques, breath work, affirmations. I'm getting goosebumps on this. I'll have to do a video just on this. I better write this down. So there are ways that you can gear yourself up for an interaction that you know might affect you. Now, that's a layer. Some people don't realize that's what's happening, right? And they just don't understand it. And so they feel drained all the time. In that case, they don't feel like they have control. Other times, so I'm not trying to control the situation and say, nope, those energies, I'm not controlling other people's energies. I'm only in control of my response and how I organize my own energetic field in order to manage it and balance it. That puts me back in control of what I do have control over. Also, this has to do with so much right now, right? We might have an energetic response to a family member who is an energetic vampire from our perspective. But from another perspective, if we can consciously recognize that without going into judgment, without going into, I am this, therefore this is why this is happening, or labeling them as an energy vampire, and that makes us better than them because we are not. That person's less awake than I am, right? That person's not an empath, but I am, right? I'm not, and again, not everybody's like this, but we all know there are some people that are, and that's their choice. Again, they are making the choice to control their beliefs around what they are. Instead, we can let go of the need to control this interaction or the control how this person interacts with us, and we can control how we interact with them. Maybe we choose not to be around them because we're vulnerable, because we're going through a massive shift, and we know because of past experiences that when we hang out with this person, it's difficult for us to regain our charge and regain our balance. So we do the exercises we need to do to manage that, to control that to a certain extent, or our energy, we can control our energy. And then we say, okay, I'm ready. That's taking our power back, not giving it away. That's one layer. Another layer is we balance ourselves out so much that when we do interact with them, it doesn't matter if they're an energy vampire or not. It will not affect us in some cases. It just depends on where you're at in your journey. And there's no judgment around this. If you are around someone and they're sucking the life out of you from your perspective, that's where you're at. We're not being called to go into judgment. Oh, I must not be managing my energy right. Oh, they are this, I am that. It's just where you're at right now. So recognize that this is happening, acknowledge it, and then ask, how can I better balance this so that I'm not as impacted by this particular person? And you might be surprised at what comes up into your field. Follow the synchronicities. And again, this is a whole other video. I want to get back though to the symptoms and because it's not just empaths that are saying I'm feeling all these symptoms. Everyone can experience them, whether they're an empath or not. I have a lot of clients who do not consider themselves empath. They don't even know about that word, potentially, and they are still being really affected by these energies. So just recognizing that is really important, and not necessarily enabling someone, oh, you're feeling these energies because you're an empath. What that does, in some cases, it can activate the person in a positive way. They go, oh, what's an empath? And they do all this work around it. And they go, oh, okay, I didn't know I was that. That's pretty cool. But for some people, that can actually cause them to fall into the category I was just describing, which is, oh, I'm an empath. That's why this is happening. And then they get stuck there, identifying with that, and they don't move beyond that. So just recognizing this, that we're all, in a sense, empathic if we choose to be. Sometimes even if we don't choose to be, it just is something that we experience oftentimes as a human. So not enabling, although we could look at everything as enabling. Oh, you're feeling this way because of solar flares. I do that all the time. Oh, you're feeling this way because you're an empath. Oh, you're feeling this way because Mercury's in retrograde. Oh, you're feeling this way because it's a full moon. Yes, these are all of these things. The full moon does impact us. The solar flares do impact us. Opening up our energy centers can impact us. So yes, however, that's not all. The end all, know all, be all. Just being open to recognizing that there might be other things going on as well. And the more open we can be to what those things are, the more we can experience. And simultaneously, though, being aware of these things, recognizing these things, again, leading it back to, okay, I recognize I've opened up my chakra centers and I'm more empathic than this person. They clearly are not empathic in the same way that I am. No hierarchy, no judgment. It just is. So I might have to do things differently than this other person to balance my energetic field. And that leads me back to what my guides are kind of encouraging people to get to that point. Hopefully that makes sense. Boy, I didn't mean to go completely into this. My head is still scratchy and itchy from all the crown tingles. Oh, okay. That's what I'm going to go into next. Just because I have a lot of respect for people who are really sharing their journey, because it's not easy to get on here. And I mean, it's more common now than it was 4 or 5 years ago, but just to share the journey. But recognizing that just because someone is sharing their journey doesn't mean that's what you're going to go through. So I talk about ascension symptoms and solar flares and all of that, but you might not feel any of that. So be aware that when someone says, you are going to feel this way if you're an empath, or you will be going through ascension symptoms, therefore you will be feeling this, that is something to keep in mind and be aware of, that that may not be true for you. So recognizing that as well. It's normal if you're feeling this, and it's also normal if you're not. It really is based on your own journey and your own experience. So just because there's all this energy coming in, I've recognized people will come up on my feed and they're like, the energies are huge. You're going to experience this, and you're going to have nauseousness, and you're going to have this. And I'm like, ooh, well, maybe not. So again, take it with a grain of salt. Actually, that does help right now, the salt, not over salting, but sea salt and Celtic salt. Those kinds of salt can help the body balance and stabilize right now. But we're just talking about recognizing that there are a lot of energies coming in. There are a lot of waves coming in. We might feel it in waves, but it doesn't mean that we're going to experience all of those things. And not identifying with those symptoms, which I've talked about many times. For me personally, I had a lot of crown tingles yesterday. I did have a little bit of nauseousness. I did have some dizziness, some vertigo. I really was exhausted after getting this huge burst of energy. Some people didn't feel anything but a little bit tired. So we're just being called to be aware not to take on other people's stories and make it our own. So maybe somebody else is going through all of that stuff. And maybe that is helpful for you to hear that, because you're like, oh my gosh, I'm not crazy. I'm going through this too. Wow. But on the flip side, there's also that, oh, maybe I am feeling sick. Oh, maybe I am getting crown tingles. Oh, wow. Oh no. It can activate fear. And some of these things can activate is it called psychosomatic? I'm not sure if that's the name, but have you ever had someone that they think they're getting sick, and you hung out with them and you're like, uh-oh, I think I'm getting sick too. I've done that quite a few times. And your body, then you're telling your body that thing. And then the body starts to feel that thing, because that's how powerful we are. So it's all about managing and balancing. And so I'm going to end on this note briefly. It's good to know that these things are potentially going on, and recognize that you are potentially going to feel really tired because of what's happening. Recognize if we're using that as a reason all of the time that we're not feeling good. That can be temporary. As we work through this, we have to find solutions to help us balance out these symptoms. And it's different for everyone. So I will share a video, hopefully with as much as I can plug in to the things that I've felt, experienced, and utilized to assist me, because I've tried a lot of different things, because I've gone through this and I still am going through it. I just started trying red light therapy for the first time, because I'm like, why not? Why not? I really enjoy it. It makes me feel great. It may not be for everyone. So the things I felt 4 years ago, I don't feel now. I've worked through them potentially, or I've shifted my diet, or I'm just more balanced in my energies, or so on and so forth. So just recognizing we're all at different layers, and it's not levels, really. I'm at this level and you're at that level. And most of the people who are watching this channel aren't like that. But it's a layer. Okay, that person's in this layer of reality and they're experiencing this in this way. I'm not. Okay. I don't have to adopt their story as my own. So these are the messages that my guides have been kind of like share, because and me, right? Not just my guides, but for my own personal experience. So I hope someone found this helpful. You know, this is ongoing. It's potentially something we could all be feeling for a very long time. And it could go away next week. I don't know. And that's part of this journey, is the not knowing. And managing the energies in that not knowing, so that we can feel our experience, so that we can acknowledge what's coming up for us, acknowledge where we're in, when we're in ego and when we're more balanced, and utilizing you know, we're all unique in our own way, and that's a beautiful thing. So in love and light, namaste.